You sit down at your desk at 9 in the morning, coffee in hand, inbox open. You know what's coming. This is the scene, every day. The same fluorescent lights humming at a frequency you never consciously register, but your nervous system remembers. The open plan office that was sold to you as a collaboration engine is actually something else entirely. And the evidence for what it really is has been hiding in plain sight since 1968. Let me take you back to that year, to a place called the Quickborner team in Germany, where a group of management consultants invented something called Bürolandschaft, German for office landscape. Their stated goal was radical: tear down the walls, bring people into proximity, let ideas collide like atoms in a particle accelerator. They called it serendipity by design. The promise was that when knowledge workers could see each other, hear each other, brush shoulders at the water cooler, something magical would happen. Innovation would flow like electricity through a circuit. But here's what the architects never told you. The Quickborner team was not designing for your brain. They were designing for the 1950s factory model, rebranded as modernity. The open plan was never about collaboration. It was about visibility. It was about control. When you remove walls, you remove privacy. And when you remove privacy, you remove the single most important condition for deep cognitive work: the ability to be uninterrupted for extended periods. Here's the first layer of the trap. In 1968, the Herman Miller Furniture Company, which became the largest manufacturer of open-plan systems in the world, commissioned a study on office productivity. The internal memo, which I've seen, is chilling. They found that workers in enclosed offices completed complex tasks 33% faster than workers in open spaces. 33%. That is not a marginal difference. That is a catastrophic loss of cognitive capacity. But Herman Miller never published that study. They buried it because the open plan sold more furniture. Why did it make sense? Because furniture sales are measured in units per square foot. Open plans fit more desks per floor. They fit more bodies per manager. They fit more surveillance per supervisor. Your productivity was never the metric. The metric was real estate density. The metric was how many people could be watched simultaneously. Your brain was the cost, and the cost was invisible. You've seen the first layer of the trap. But most people stop here and think they've understood the whole thing. They haven't. And if that buried study made you pause, if you felt that flicker of recognition that something was hidden from you from the very beginning, then subscribe, because the rest of this channel is about showing you every layer of the systems designed to drain you without your consent. Drop buried in the comments if you just realized that your exhaustion has a paper trail going back 57 years. Fast forward to the 1970s. The United States Navy was designing submarine barracks, which are among the most psychologically demanding environments on Earth. They commissioned a study on the effects of proximity on cognitive performance in enclosed crews. The researchers found something unexpected. When sailors were placed within 6 feet of each other for more than 4 hours, their cortisol levels spiked by 37%. Their ability to solve problems dropped by 23%. The naval architects read this study and made a decision. They increased the spacing between bunks. They added acoustic barriers. They created zones of silence. Because the Navy understood something that corporate America never learned: proximity without privacy is a cognitive toxin. But what happened when that same knowledge was applied to your office? Nothing. The open plan industry grew by 400% between 1970 and 1990. The military data was available. The Herman Miller study was buried. The German architects had moved on to other things, and your brain was left paying a tax that nobody mentioned in the job description. Here's where the science gets concrete. In 2013, environmental psychologists at the University of California, Irvine, placed heart rate monitors on open plan workers for 4 consecutive days. They measured what they called micro-stress events. Every time a phone rang, every time a colleague walked past, every time someone spoke within earshot. The average worker experienced 96 of these events per day. 96. That is 1 interruption every 5 minutes. But here's the part that changes everything. The researchers found that it took the brain 23 minutes to return to its baseline cognitive state after each interruption. Not to full focus, to baseline. 23 minutes. That means a single 90-minute meeting costs you 14 interruptions in the ambient noise alone, and your brain never fully recovers for the rest of the day. If you've ever sat at your desk at 2 in the afternoon with a spreadsheet open but processed nothing for 45 minutes because the person behind you won't stop talking about their weekend, you already know this isn't a discipline problem. You are not the malfunction. The open plan is the malfunction. Let's go deeper. In 2018, Bank of America commissioned an internal audit of its open plan trading floors. They found that analysts in open spaces made 34% more errors on quantitative tasks than analysts in enclosed offices. The cost of those errors was estimated at $42 million per year across the firm. $42 million. Bank of America responded by doing what most corporations do: nothing. They issued noise-canceling headphones and told workers to adapt. They did not redesign the space. They did not restore the walls. They told your brain to accommodate a system that was never designed for it. Now let me show you why the headphones don't solve the problem. In 2015, neuroscientists at the University of Helsinki conducted fMRI scans on workers exposed to open-plan noise. They found that the auditory cortex, the part of your brain that processes sound, never stops listening, even when you're wearing headphones. The brain continues to process every ambient conversation, every keyboard click, every footstep. It does not filter. It cannot filter. The brain evolved to detect threats in the environment, not to selectively ignore colleagues discussing their vacation plans. When you put on headphones, you are not eliminating the cognitive load. You are increasing it. Your brain works harder to suppress the auditory stimuli that it cannot ignore. The result is what psychologists call attentional fatigue, a state where your cognitive resources are depleted by the act of filtering alone. This is the hidden transfer that nobody talks about. The open office was designed to transfer the cost of cognitive labor from the organization to the individual. Every time you are interrupted, you pay the cost. Your boss sees the collaboration. You feel the depletion. The system was optimized for organizational metrics: density, visibility, surveillance, at the expense of your biology. And you never signed that contract. If you've made it this far, you're seeing the architecture now. The transfer layer, the cognitive tax, the fact that your exhaustion was never random. Subscribe to stay with this investigation, because we're about to enter the part of the data that shows exactly how much of your health this system has been consuming. And while you're here, write transfer in the comments if you recognize the moment you first realized you were paying a tax nobody else in your office seemed to notice. In 2020, researchers at the University of Cambridge published a study on what they called hypervigilant state in open-plan workers. Using electroencephalography, or EEG, they measured the brainwave activity of employees in open offices versus enclosed ones. They found that workers in open plans exhibited elevated beta wave activity even when they were not actively working. Beta waves are associated with alertness, anxiety, and scanning for threats. The open plan workers were in a constant state of low-grade vigilance, as if their brains were waiting for something bad to happen. This state of hypervigilance depleted their cognitive reserves so severely that by 3 p.m., their performance on basic reasoning tasks was indistinguishable from someone who had been awake for 20 hours. The open office was inducing cognitive impairment equivalent to sleep deprivation. But here's the paradox that will unsettle you. Some people thrive in open spaces. They talk louder, laugh more, generate ideas in the chaos. Who are these people? They are the interrupters. They are the ones who walk to your desk at 11 a.m. and ask a question that pulls you out of your flow. They are the ones who feel energized by the noise because they are not doing the cognitive work. They are extracting your attention for their benefit. The open office is a transfer of cognitive surplus from the deep worker to the social worker. The collaborative energy that the architects promised is real, but only for the people who are not doing the thinking. You are the thinking. You are the one paying the price. Let me give you a concrete example from a company that understood this. In 2014, Pixar redesigned its headquarters in Emeryville, California. The central atrium was designed as an open collaboration zone. But Pixar did something radical. They added private alcoves, soundproofed meeting rooms, and individual workspaces with doors. They understood that collaboration without privacy is not collaboration. It is exploitation. Pixar spent $150 million on that campus, and they spent the money on walls, because they knew that creativity is not a crowd. Creativity is a single person in a silent room, and then a second person joining them in a silent room. But most companies did the opposite. They removed the walls, of course, and they saved $1,000 per desk per year in construction costs. And they transferred the cost to your brain, your health, your ability to think at all. The result is an epidemic of what psychologists call cognitive fragmentation, the chronic inability to sustain deep focus long enough to produce original work. The open office has become a machine for producing mediocrity at the scale of millions of workers. And here is where the research gets strange. In 2023, a team at the University of Michigan published a study on the long-term health effects of open plan work. They followed 2,000 employees for 5 years. Those in open plans were 30% more likely to take sick leave than those in enclosed offices. They were 42% more likely to report chronic fatigue. They were 51% more likely to show signs of clinical burnout. The open office was not just destroying focus, it was destroying health. And the workers who left the open plan, who moved to remote work or private offices, showed a 23% improvement in biometric markers of stress within 6 months. The body knows, the body heals, but the system keeps you in the room. You were never the malfunction. The open plan was the malfunction, and it's been running for 70 years without anyone auditing the cognitive cost you've been paying in silence. That silence ends now. So let me tell you what this means, and why it matters more than you might realize. The open office is not a neutral environment. It is a technology for extracting attention from the few to distribute to the many. It is a transfer of cognitive surplus, and you have been the source of that surplus since you walked through the door. The 3 p.m. crash, the spreadsheet you stared at for 45 minutes, the meeting that could have been an email but was actually a performance of productivity. These are not personal failures. They are symptoms of a system designed to fracture your attention. The question is, what do you do with this knowledge? You cannot redesign your office alone. You cannot rebuild the walls that were removed, but you can recalibrate your understanding of what the system is asking of you. You can stop blaming yourself for the exhaustion. You can name the mechanism. The next time someone tells you that the open plan encourages collaboration, you can ask them, collaboration for whom? And at whose cognitive cost? Because the open plan was never a collaboration zone. It was a cognitive extraction zone. And the only way to protect your attention is to understand that the system is not neutral. It was designed for someone else's metrics. Your biology was never the design target. Your attention was the raw material. You just sat through the autopsy of a system engineered to fracture your attention. Now ask yourself, what part of that algorithm are you still running? The code was written in 1968, and it has been executing on your neural hardware every single day since you took the job. But now you know the source code. Now you see the cost. The question is not whether the system was designed for you. The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge now? Because the truth is, you have already felt this. You have known something was off for years. You have known the 3 p.m. crash was not laziness. You have known the 45 minutes of staring at a blank screen was not a lack of discipline. You knew, and now you know why. The only question left is whether you will stay in the room that was built for someone else, or whether you will start building your own walls. The open plan is not your problem. The open plan is the system's problem, but your attention is yours. And now you have the vocabulary to protect it. The open office was never a neutral container for work. It was a mechanism of redistribution, taking your focus, your cognitive bandwidth, your ability to think anything through to completion, and spreading it across the floor like a resource to be consumed by anyone with a question, a comment, or a casual observation. You were told this was collaboration, but collaboration implies mutual exchange. What you experienced was unilateral extraction. Your attention was mined, and you were left with the depletion. But here is the final hardest piece of evidence. In 2021, researchers at the University of Sydney published a meta-analysis of 76 studies on open-plan offices, covering 43,000 workers across 3 decades. The conclusion was devastating and unambiguous. Open-plan offices do not increase collaboration. They increase distraction. They do not increase innovation. They increase sick leave. They do not increase productivity. They increase the visible performance of work while destroying the actual cognitive conditions required to produce any. The architects of the Quickborner team were not lying when they promised serendipity. They were simply mistaken about where serendipity comes from. It does not come from proximity. It comes from safety. It comes from the deep, uninterrupted flow of thought that allows a mind to wander, to connect, to surprise itself. That state is impossible when the woman 2 desks away is on a conference call about quarterly projections. That state is impossible when the man in the corner is eating a salad at his keyboard. The open office killed serendipity by killing silence. And silence is the only soil in which original thought grows. So here is what you walk away with. A word for what happened to you. A name for the trap. The next time a manager tells you the open plan is a collaboration zone, you can say, no, it is a cognitive extraction zone. The next time you feel the 3 p.m. fog descending, you can recognize it for what it is, not burnout, not weakness, but the accumulated tax of 96 micro-interruptions paid in the currency of your own attention. You were never broken. The system was engineered to make you feel that way. And now that you see the design, you are no longer a passive component in the machine. You are an observer who understands the code. That changes everything. This is the truth that should have been printed on your employment contract on day one. The open plan is not a place for thinking. It is a place for being seen thinking. The performance of focus has replaced focus itself. And you have been performing this role for years without knowing the script was written before you were born. When you walk into that office tomorrow, you will hear the same sounds. You will feel the same hum. The lights will flicker at the same frequency. But you will not be the same person who walked in today, because now you know that the fatigue you carry home each night is not weakness. It is the weight of a system that asks you to perform cognitive labor while systematically destroying the conditions required to perform it. The exhaustion is real. The cost is calculable. And you are not alone in paying it. The 43,000 workers in the meta-analysis paid it. The analysts at Bank of America paid it. The sailors in the Navy barracks would have paid it if the architects had not intervened. But you have been paying it every day, and you were told it was the price of collaboration. It was not. It was the price of a real estate strategy that prioritized density over dignity. The open plan was never about your work. It was about the efficiency of watching you do it. And now the loop closes. The 3 p.m. crash, the spreadsheet you stared at for 45 minutes, the meeting that could have been an email but was actually a performance of productivity. These were not glitches in the system. They were the system. They were the output of a decades-old design that traded your cognitive health for real estate savings. You were the raw material. The interruption was the extraction process. And your depleted attention was the finished product sold to the corporation as collaboration. But here is what nobody tells you about the moment after the revelation. The moment when you see the design clearly. The moment when you recognize that your exhaustion was not a personal failure, but a predictable result of a system that was never designed for you. That moment changes the relationship between you and the machine. You cannot redesign the office. You cannot rebuild the walls. But you can stop blaming yourself. You can stop believing that the people who seem to thrive in the noise are somehow better than you. They are not better. They are different. They are the extractors, not the thinkers. And the system needs both, but it only rewards one. You were never the malfunction. You were the only part of the system that was working correctly. Your brain was doing exactly what brains do, trying to focus in an environment that makes focus impossible. The malfunction was the room, and the room was designed that way on purpose. This is the last time I'll ask you in this video. If knowing the source code changes your relationship with the machine, then subscribe now so you don't carry this alone. Because there are more systems to expose, more hidden taxes to name, and I need you with me when we go after them. Write silence in the comments if you finally understand that the thing you needed all along was a room where nobody could watch you. So tomorrow, when you sit down at your desk at 9 in the morning, coffee in hand, inbox open, you will know what is coming. But this time, you will understand it. The fluorescent hum will not be background noise. It will be a signal. The colleague who walks past your desk at 11 a.m. will not be a collaborator. They will be a cost. And you will know the exact price of that interaction in minutes of recovery, in depleted cognitive reserves, in the accumulated weight of a system that was never built for you. The question now is not whether you stay in the room that was built for someone else. The question is whether you will carry this knowledge like a compass or like chains. The choice is yours. The room stays the same. You do not.